It is cold in here this morning. You're out in the garage with TheEZGZ. It's 32 degrees, and I was making a video a couple of days ago, and I turned my furnace off, so it's not 32 in here, but it's not real comfortable. And, you know, everybody wants more power for their toys, and this is what you gotta have to live with when you have these dual carbs. And if you want any kind of power to speak of, you probably need dual carbs. I don't care if they're single barrels, 34 ICT Webers or Cadrons or dual throats. If this is the kind of thing that'll happen. I just wanted to go get a breakfast burrito and take one over to Mary's, and I remembered that this thing wasn't doing real good. I took it to you. It was running fine. This thing was running great. And a couple days back, I think it was last week, I took the carburetor off. I did my normal troubleshooting technique, which is you go around and you turn the fuel, the idle gas needle, you turn it in, and if the engine starts stumbling and hesitating, that one's working fine. It's not clogged. And you go to each cylinder and do that, and when you turn it in and it doesn't change anything, then you know that that's the problem, you know, and it's usually the idle jet because that's the smallest jet in there. I think they're 50 or 55, I can't remember. And so now I want to go someplace in the car. If this, you know, luckily this isn't my only car, but this is the car I like to drive. So I want to hurry up and get this done and maybe run over there to Mary's. So first thing we got to do is, you know, I'm going to have to, okay, the other thing was, if you're suspect, so it ran just phenomenal for, you know, 4 or 5 days, and this is what happens. I rammed this engine to Michigan and back. I had a problem when I got home, and it sat for a few months, and I just pulled one of the jets out on this side, and there happened to be some crud in it, and it was just running phenomenal. And I've been driving it for months and months and months, and not a problem. Then all of a sudden, you get in it, and it's got that little shake. When you let out the clutch to take off, it's got more of a shake because you're running on 3 cylinders, basically. You start getting into the mains, and it'll clean out and take off. But if you keep doing that and you get caught at a lot of stoplights, then now your spark plug's taking a beating because, in this case, it was looking all dark, like it was just pure fuel. And what did I do with that spark plug? Yeah. This looked to me like it was, you know, hugely rich, and I don't understand what was going on with that, but I changed it, put a new spark plug in, took the carburetor off, put it on the bench, sprayed the outside all down, took all the jets out, squirted through the passages, and put it back together with a new spark plug, and it ran great. Now, yesterday afternoon, it was running like crap, running on 3 cylinders, so I knew, you know, it's likely it's come back. And this is what can happen. This stuff gets caught in the passages, and you shut the car off, the vacuum goes away, and the piece will drop down, and the next time you drive around, it stays down, and then you get in, I don't know for sure, but they come and they go, and it's aggravating as hell. So when I got home, I wanted to know, I was suspect of number 1 cylinder or number 2 cylinder. So, because those are the two I had. I'm not disturbing anything on this side because it hasn't acted up. So, I pulled the spark plug wire, and it almost died from number 1. And the firing order is what? 1, 4, 3, 2. So I went over here to number 2 side, and I pulled that spark plug off. I had some gloves and some insulated pliers. I pulled that spark plug wire off and nothing changed. So I held the spark plug wire down there to make sure I had spark. And that was another thing. I didn't pull the cap off the other day. I wanted to look in the cap because, you know, sometimes electrical issues will make you, you know, you're so ready to jump on the same old problem. And looks pretty good in there. And this centerpiece, I always watch that centerpiece of carbon that contacts on top. A lot of times if you leave these things together and you guys live in a humid climate or something, you get that white corrosion that builds up on there. And everything will still work. Everything will still work. But it's good to get that carbon, not carbon, whatever that corrosion is off. I'll take like a sharp pocket knife or a piece of sandpaper and just kind of rub it. And if you get, there's two different kinds of caps. I don't want to take that one back off. I'll have to look on the video, or maybe you remember. Some of them have aluminum contacts in there. I avoid those. I always try to get the ones that have the copper contact down there inside the cap. Well, I guess it's up here at the top, isn't it? It's not at the base. So look for the replacement caps that have copper in them. I don't think those get crudded up as quickly as the aluminum ones, and it's just a better conductor in my humble opinion. So I got to take the cover off. I got to loosen the linkage up. I can't get to that back spark plug, and the access for the idle jet is on the other side. I have to take the air cleaner off. Yeah, I'm gonna be dinking around with this thing for a half hour. So I'll turn you back on as I go. I don't have really room to work back here. It's cold outside. I don't want to open the door. But I want you to be aware that, you know, I have problems just like everybody else. It's not like you build one of these hot rod motors and it just runs flawlessly all the time. This stuff will just pop up at the least convenient time, and then you're kind of in a situation. Now, the funny thing is, you know, you could drive this car on 3 cylinders, but that's not doing the engine any good. It's not fun to drive, and your other cylinders are working. It just, the whole thing feels out of balance and kind of doesn't feel right, and I don't like that. When you get your foot in it and get out of those idle jets, then it picks up because you're getting a little squirt from the accelerator pump, and the mains are coming in, but you don't drive at 3,000 RPM when you're just in town and the speed limit's 25, 30 miles an hour. Stay on topic with this. We got a carburetor issue, and everything, my life is on hold. I'm in a crabby mood until I get this thing running really good. So I'm interested to see what I find, or if I find something, and I'll turn you back on. Okay, I've taken the top engine shroud off so I can access the air cleaners. I've loosened the bolt to take this arm loose at the top. I still need to take this fuel line off and tuck it up high out of the way so I don't get too much dribble on the floor. One of the things I want to do before we get this thing all done is double check my fuel pressure. I use this, this is a really cool regulator. I have the electric fuel pump under the gas tank up front, and I've got my regulator back here, and I've got this thing probably adjusted at, I'm thinking it's less than 2 pounds. Seems like the lower the better with this type of carb. This is not an off-road carburetor. This is an old Gene Berg setup. I had bought a 2-liter for a sand rail. Excuse me. Woo! These are outerwears that I run over my cotton filters. I really think these are the most fantastic things. I had these custom made. Oh, I called them up and I said, hey, I've got these Gene Berg DCNF with their special air cleaners. And they charged me a lot for them, but they've lasted a long time too. I've got a little short bungee cord on it here just to prevent these wing nuts from coming unscrewed, just from vibration. It's just a habit that I developed. Sometimes I use bicycle inner tubes, and I'll cut them in little strips, and I'll just put them around there. That works too. And I usually cut a whole bunch extra, and I stick them around my gear shift knob down the gear shifter inside. Gotta get all these wing nuts off and try not to drop anything down around the car, so when I put it back together, I've got them. All these. I'm gonna start making our little pile there, and whoop, get the top off. Do not ever if you lose one of those and you suspect it went down the carburetor, you better get a flashlight and look. The butterflies will stay up, but oh my gosh, that would be super catastrophe to let's see how dirty old TheEZGZ's air cleaner is. Yeah, it's not too bad. It's not too oily either, but I'm using that other outerwear and I'm just going on the street with this thing. So now I've got a special setup that I came up with. Isn't that cool? I should produce these. There's a magnet in there. I got these at an HVA supply house, and this red one was the 1/4 inch one. Trying to take that out. See, there's a magnet in there. A lot of times we would carry these in our pocket, our coat pocket or something. You go on a rooftop unit, and anything you do on a rooftop AC unit, you got to get that sheet metal out. If you want to get to the filter and change the filter or put your gauges on the compressor, you got to take those panels off, and they're usually 5/16 or 1/4 inch. So the blue one, it looked just like this, and there's a magnet in there. The blue one was 5/16 and the red one was 1/4 inch, and somehow I forgot that in my pocket, and when I retired, I was so surprised to see that in my pocket. But I know where the I have to get in the back here. First thing I'm going to do is pull this idle jet out, and hopefully I'm hoping it's right over on these type of carburetors. It's right there on the other side. And this is why I like Delorto carburetors, because here's the main jets right here on top, and the idle jets are right next to them. So you have access to everything from the top, and you can get to them. The Webers, you have to go from the side, is a pain in the neck, and but people really like them. And they came out with the new MP came out, remade the they call them the D series carburetors, and they corrected so many things. We're going to do some carburetor videos here, and I'm going to need 2 hands and a lot of concentration to get that jet out using this, and then hopefully the O-ring that's in there will stay in there, and I'm going to have to get some mirrors and play some games here, so I'm going to shut you off for a couple minutes. I don't have a... This is boring as shit anyhow. It's like watching paint dry. It's one of those videos that I'm just doing it while I'm working, but it'll probably never get posted. We'll see. Maybe I can edit it up. Okay. I've gotten my tool in there. I got the jet unscrewed from the back, and it came out without the jet. The jet is laying loose in there. Now I have to take the carburetor off, because it's just trying to get this in from a blind side. You're just more likely to screw things up. Sometimes when you get yourself in a hurry, things just compound. You have to take a couple of breaths. You have to calm down. This is where a little bit of maturity comes involved. When I was younger, I'd start spitting and cussing. The sky would be blue, and I'd be, acting like a kid. And you just got to give into it. I have another vehicle or 2 or 3. So it's like, if I want to take this one and I want to address this now, you have to stay calm and fight those feelings of anxiety and frustration, and just do a good job. So you do it once. This applies to everything that you do in life, right? I know I sound like a parent or something like that, but as you go through life, you get caught in traffic, and you start screaming and swearing at people and getting excited and changing lanes and doing all those things. Why are you doing that? it's because you're late. You didn't plan ahead. You got distracted, got involved with something else, weren't watching the time, now you're late. Or maybe you did everything right and traffic just screwed up. There's an accident up there. What's the worst thing in the world is when the accident's in the other lane going the other way. There's not a problem in yours, but everybody's got to slow down to look at it. I don't look. I don't give a damn if there's somebody's head hanging out the window or through the windshield. I'm not going to look. I just want to get to my destination, and I just go straight ahead, and I just get frustrated just like you do. And I don't want to have that happen today. So now I've got to get my take my spark plugs loose, and I can follow those back. Same with the other side. And these have got smaller nuts. Normally they're held on with 13mm nuts, and I buy the 8mm nuts that take an 11mm wrench on the outside. Got my fuel line off, got my linkage loose. I know that idle jet is laying in there, and I just had this thing off last week. There's my intake manifold, and right there, see that? There's the jet and there's the O-ring. So there it is. Now luckily I had the carburetor all cleaned up. So here's our, what is that? This is our, man, I need a magnifying glass. There was a time when I could read that. It looks like it's a 55. So now you put it by some sort of a background. I'm going to hold it up here to the light, and there's probably gasoline in it. But no, see, I can see, I don't know if you can see it. The camera's probably doing weird stuff. I can see straight through that hole. It does not look like there is anything in this passage. So I'm going to set this. I blew through it anyhow just to make sure something else is going on in this carburetor. Damn it. And you can see these were brand new heads. They probably only have 5,000 or 6,000 miles on them. There's not pools of gas laying down there in the bottom. These were the least expensive heads, and they're stock valve heads with heavy duty single springs. I made a video the other day about oil leaks, and I was talking about the gaskets. Now you can see them. You can see these little pieces of aluminum. That's from sliding the aluminum intake manifold up and down. These threads act like a file, and it's kind of absorbed into the gasket. It doesn't leak. This isn't torn between them. You can see where they're kind of match ported. A lot of the heads at one point from Volkswagen had a little stud that stuck up here, and this particular gasket has a hole in it for that stud, and it kind of helped center it up. But this head didn't have that little stud, and I'm going to pull a spark plug out, and I'm also going to check the resistance on that spark plug wire. Now, it might be worth mentioning, I use a 1/4-inch drive ratchet, and look at how I've customized this spark plug socket. I just held it up to the grinding wheel, and I just ground the hell out of it. The rubber's missing on the inside of it, but that way it fits inside here a little bit better. And this is a fine tooth, and there you go. Now it's loose. I don't put stuff, some guys put never sees or some kind of a graphite or oil on their spark plugs threads. Depends on the head if it's giving me trouble or not. something to hang on to. A lot of times the spark plug socket will get hung up on the tin or the intake manifold. On a sandrail, I can get the spark plug out without taking the carburetor off, but there's just no way. Okay, well, look at that. That doesn't look too bad. It's kind of, because I didn't run it that way very long. But that doesn't look to me like that looks to me more like a rich condition than a lean condition. That's not a bad looking spark plug. But we'll take a closer look at it here. And I know that's not the problem. So now I'm going to put the carburetor up here on the bench and start taking jets out and spraying things out. And it's just, there's no way to know for sure. I mean, the way it runs on the car is the final analysis, you know, whether it works or not. It's really nice when you can find something in that small jet. Doggone it. Oh well, that's the way it is. Moving right along. Alright, well, I sprayed everything good on the bench. I felt real good about it. The accelerator pumps were squirting real strong, so I didn't take the carburetor apart because I'm kind of jonesing to get going. I had a little too much coffee this morning, and I need that burrito to calm myself down. Getting a little bit of an upset stomach here. I replaced that spark plug with a different one, and we're just gonna fire it up, and it's trial and error. I mean, if it's something down further in one of those passages, I'm not sure what the heck is going on here, so we'll just fire it up here. Open the garage door so we don't now there's probably going to be a little bit of brake cleaner. So I'm expecting a little stutter there. Just stumbling. It should have cleared out by now. I disconnected my tachometer. My oil pressure is actually 15 pounds higher than what it's showing on the gauge. We'll go out the back here. Ooh, what's all that? That's that. No, that shouldn't be that carb cleaner. I didn't really look in my mirror. Didn't notice that before. Okay. I just checked the valves here not long ago. She's really not warmed up. But I want to make sure. Maybe we got something else going on here. Well, luckily, we're at home with all the tools. It's really a bummer when something like this happens on the road. But I want to take the cap off. And I'm going to turn it around to number 1, which is about this groove here. And then I'll get top dead center on the top part there. And what did I do with my... What did I do with my spark plug wrench? I think oh, there it is. I just threw it in there. Did you know that your generator pulley is the same size as your
spark plug wrench if you're running the 14mm spark plug. Makes it kind of handy for a lot of guys struggle with that. I cannot. What I struggle with is my vision. And okay, this is another example of pain in the neck. Okay, this is not a degreed pulley, and I know I'm getting close, so I'm sure I filed some marks up here so that if I want to time my engine. Okay, and I just came up by number 1. I'm not seeing them. Is it right where that? This is the aftermarket one. I think I see something right. Oop. Right there. Alright. So that's just what you gotta do. You do what you gotta do, right? Grab myself a screwdriver. Pop that valve. What I just want to check is that, okay, okay, it's not like the valve is stuck open. This one's tight, so it's not anything that I can see. Really easy with the valves. I just kind of shake them around, get it in the right. Sometimes you can get them with your fingers. I'm gonna have to set you down here. Well, doggone it. It's either in that carburetor or it's something's going on, but I need to well, I'm a little disappointed that didn't turn out a win situation, but I think it's good for you guys to see that even with what I do and what I try to show and teach, that I have frustrations, and I'll just have to pursue this more later, and this isn't a good time, so I'll turn you back on when we get back into it. And I think I'll put that spark plug wire back in the cap. Put that back down. It's really easy to forget stuff like this, get distracted, especially when you're trying to make these videos. So that cap goes down and fits in a little groove, and then you pull the little locks up. You can probably hear that one. So there's 1 and there's 2, and put that spark plug wire back where it belongs. So, and I'll think on it a little bit. And sometimes, you know, you can't always do it. You can't always be calm, and I get stressed out just like everybody else. But sometimes if you're in a situation where you can walk away from it, that's a good thing to do. I'm just sort of grinding the gears in my head here, thinking what to do, and I'm gonna get something to eat. I'll turn you back on later today. I don't know how. Give me some input if you want to see more of my frustration videos. You know, I always seem to show everything when it's going well, and that's what a lot of people do on YouTube. Not everybody. You know, if you just show people the finished results and the good stuff, you know, this is all part of it, and it makes the videos a little bit longer, but I think it's, you know, everybody might not appreciate it, but there's a few people that from the sound of some of their comments, you know, they really like what I'm doing, and they like hanging out with me in the garage, and this is kind of what I do. And when I was working, I would do it on the weekends if I didn't have something else planned, and that's just the way it goes. So we'll turn it back on later, and if I don't get to it today, I guess I won't get to it today. Okay guys, well, it's the end of the day. Got the problem figured out. Figured I'd share it with you. I didn't know I had it figured out because after, what you haven't seen is that, of course, I showed you that it wasn't running perfect, and I came back and 2 more times before I got the darn piece of crud out of there. And I'll be perfectly honest with you, I don't have anything to show you. All I know is I kept working on the passages, and it either moved through or laid back down or something. But I want to show you a few details about these Weber DCNF 42s. Gene Berg used to sell this carburetor and called it Gene Berg 42 Specials, and he drilled out the passages and, you know, put his own little touch on things. So kind of made them his, and he sold them, and that's what's on the car right now. Now these are another pair that I picked up at a swap meet because I'd never seen them around before. They're not as popular as the Weber IDF series carburetors. You can pick those up all day long. I'm pulling out the main jet stacks now. We'll go over that here in a second. And I'll tell you what the numbers are real quick like. What's in the car now for a 2-liter engine at 5,000 feet on this particular day that's working pretty good is a 180 air correction jet, an F25 emulsion tube, a 140 main jet, and a 55 idle jet at 2.5 turns out with long needle valves. They make 2 different these needle valves to adjust your idle fuel air mixture. These are the long needles. The short needle is about half of that size, and it'll be 1.5 to 1.25 turns out, and 1/4 of a turn on that particular screw makes a big difference. On these longer screws, same carburetor, same setup, it's 2.5 turns out, and 1/4 of a turn is hardly noticeable. But so 1/2, 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5, and this should go on the car and should be a starting point to help you run. If you have to turn it out several turns and it runs better, then you probably need to go a size bigger on your idle jet. 50 and 55s pretty much cover things on these Weber carburetors. The idle jet itself is way up here on the side, and this is the jet holder, and the O-rings got to be good. You don't want cracked, dried up O-rings. I'm going to pull off the... I think I'm going to pull it off. You have to really be careful with these gaskets on the top. I did swap gaskets as well. The gasket that was in this carburetor was better than the gasket that was in there. I actually tore it pulling it off, and I hate to admit that, but shit happens. It was old and it had a crack in it, but I'm still not throwing it away. It might be good for a pattern. And I've showed this many times, I'll show it again. When you're adjusting your float level, you're raising this up, and you'll see right there when it stops,
when it stops moving and the ball starts going in, it's not all the way up the top. That's not what's shutting it off. It's when that upper section stops, right there, that valve is closed. And I have lowered the float setting on the carbs in the car to help lean out my fuel mixture. And you have to be careful doing that, because when you lower the float level, you don't want to go lean. You want enough gas so that those main circuits work. You don't want to go lean at high RPM for extended periods of time, because you get detonation and you ruin your engine. So these are this is exactly what I had. Let me grab a can of brake cleaner here, and I will show you where I suspect my problem was. I believe my product, here's where the idle jet goes. It's very small. It goes right here. This little hole right here on top is where that gets the air that goes inside here and mixes with that idle circuit. And so if I put this in here and you saw that fuel come out there, that thing was clogged up on that other carburetor, and I missed that because I saw fuel coming out in other places and I thought it was clear, but I looked at these and I tried the same thing again on these carburetors, and I said, oh, and I went back to that other one. So yeah, I struggled with this a lot. This is part of the choke mechanism over here. I don't have that on the other carburetor. They make block-off plates so you can take all of this junk out, not clutter things up. It's a very interesting accelerator pump. It uses this ramp on the side here to move the arm. And if you want more motion on the arm, you have two different choices for your pivot point to give it more squirt out of your accelerator pump jets. Here's your pump, and here's the jet for it where it squirts in here. And these mains are replaceable, and the combination, the winning combination for a 42 DCNF means that it's 42 millimeters across the overall bore. When you look down here, it's been reduced with those Venturis to 32. That was pretty much a standard setup. The standard main jet, which goes on the end of this stack, would have been a 128, and I seem to be running pretty good with a 140. I had a 150 in it, and the air correction jet, which goes on this side that's removable, is a 180. And sometimes you can do a little juggling. The emulsion tube is an F25 on both of these carburetors. And if you get a Weber book, it'll go into more detail on all that stuff. But if somebody's come to YouTube looking for help on their 42 DCNF for a Volkswagen, this is what I came up with that worked for me. Your mileage may differ. I like to use this, what I call a split tail starter screwdriver, and I'll put it down, and it helps me to remove these jet stacks, because I can put it in here and it'll spread apart, and then I can pull it straight up and out. Be gentle, be kind to these things. They don't make these parts anymore. And if you see a set of these carburetors for a reasonable price, it probably wouldn't be a bad idea to pick them up. But I wouldn't, unless you already own a set, you could pick up some junk ones. But if, make sure the throttle linkage and everything is there complete. This is an old setup with these little narrow air cleaners. Look at this thing, goes back a long ways. Clogged's buggies, Phil Star. And I don't think these things have a lot of use on them. So these are the idle mixture screws. Long needles, 2.5 turns. Short needles, 1.25 turns. 50 or a 55 idle jet. 140 128, 130, 140. For the last 2 years, I will admit I've been running a 150. Now, that's what it says on the jet. That doesn't mean that somebody didn't put a drill through something over the years. You just never know when you're getting this used stuff. This is the type of flow meter, airflow meters that I use when I'm synchronizing my carburetors. This one would not work on these carburetors. It just wouldn't seal properly. I had the velocity stacks, the Gene Berg velocity stacks. I had to use this one and it worked fine. This one costs a little bit more typically, but it's a little smoother. And this one here has a tendency to jump around. The little red piece of plastic that's in that tube will bounce up and down, and you're just kind of watching that. And it's kind of a waste of time to try to synchronize two on one carburetor. They should be close. If they're not, it probably means that the shaft is bent. Somebody's manhandled something, or they've gotten dropped, or something's happened. Another tool that you can use to find a clogged idle jet is with the engine idling and stumbling. If you go around with one of these Harbor Freight, it's not a Harbor Freight, it's a Raytech Mini Temp. These things, gosh, I think they're like 20 bucks now, maybe less. It's a temperature sensor. But if you read all four exhaust pipes, you're going to have one that's going to read a lower temperature, maybe 75 degrees or 100 degrees lower temperature, because the idle jet's clogged and there's no fuel going in there. It just stumbles away. And that's a quick tool if you have like a sand rail or someplace that all for a header system. If you have a drag car with just a header system on it, this would come in handy for a quick diagnostic, because all this searching takes time, and you can see all the things that you have to take apart just for a clogged idle jet. And sometimes you have to take the carburetor off the car, and many times you'll start thinking, just like I do, that it's the idle jet. I got an idle jet clogged. But you also have to watch your plugs, your plug wires, your distributor cap, points, or electronic ignition, or your coil, and all your wire connections. So your ignition system can create similar problems to carburetor problems. Timing, there's a lot of things to take into consideration, and it's just a matter of getting used to it and practicing it. And you get better at it, you get faster at it, and then this car I went for 2016 it's 2018 now, the end of 2018, and 2016 I drove this car to Michigan and back with this engine that's in there and these carburetors, a 2-liter, and I didn't have any problems. I got back and I parked the car for a couple months, and one of the idle jets had some crud in it, and I just happened to pull out the easiest one to get to, and there was the stuff. When I put it back in, it was just running smooth as could be, and that's been a year and a half ago, and now all of a sudden I've got a problem. Fuel lines can be an issue. If you're using rubber fuel lines and you've had them on for that long a period of time, this ethanol fuel can break them down and create problems. So I hope this is all giving you some food for thought with your situation and your problem. Don't be discouraged about spending the big bucks and getting these dual carbs. When they work, they are just heaven, and they will give you a lot more power than just having a single carb. So we'll fire it up here. It's dark outside, getting ready to snow. And thanks for watching. Thanks for subbing. TheEZGZ out. It's fixing to snow here, and I just got this job done, but it's pretty lame to make a carburetor tuning manifold and not have proof of the results. So everything's back on the car. Let's fire it up and you can see how smooth it runs. I drove it around the lake and it's running really good. So, good luck with your project. And stay tuned till the next one.